Hi, I'm Michael B from TrackandSolo.com, and in this video I'm going to show you two ways to come up with a bass line. Let's get started. Okay, the first way that I'm going to show you how to come up with a real simple bass line is to actually use the root note that's in your chord progression. And right here I have my chords with a pad playing, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that. And then I'm going to drop it in our bass plane, and then I'm going to remove everything but the root note. So we'll get rid of that. We'll get rid of this. Oops, I hit duplicate instead of delete. Get rid of this. And we'll get rid of this. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is let's go ahead and highlight all these. And then what I'm going to do is let's just go down. And then I'm going to duplicate. And then I'm going to duplicate again. And again, this is just going to be a very simple bass line off of the root of your chord. So let's go ahead and just, let me shorten this up here. Let's go ahead and play this just with the kick drum. I'll take you off. Okay, so next what I would do, because that sounds kind of boring, is I'm going to shorten up each one of the notes. So I'm going to cut the duration of each note in half. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it. And then I'm going to go ahead and slide it over here. And now we've got double the notes. So this will make it at least a little more interesting. So let's go ahead and listen to that. Okay, even something simple like that, once you play it with the rest of the song, you may actually like it and decide to stop here. I'm going to go ahead and play it with the kick drum, and I'm going to also play it with our chord progression using a pad sound BST. So if you like that, you can stop there. If you want something that's a little more busier, again, what we can do is we can cut our duration in half. I'm just using my quantize here. And we can just chop it right in half. In fact, let's chop it in half, but instead of duplicating it, let's leave the empty spaces in there. And let's listen to see how that sounds. Oops. Okay, now again, if you like it, keep it. In fact, let's just go ahead and just listen to this with the rest of our song. What I'm going to do is I am going to unsolo, and let's just listen to the bass with the drums and with our chord progression. Doesn't sound too bad. If you wanted something, again, a little more busier, then you could, again, duplicate it. And then we'll go ahead and drop this into the empty spaces. And then now we've got double time. So you could do that. One of the other things you could do, if you wanted something, maybe the duration of each note is still a little too long. If you wanted a shorter duration of each note, because right now they're kind of running into each other. I just highlighted everything, and then we're gonna just cut it so there's just gonna be a little space in between each note. And then now let's do it. So at this point we could, well, I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and listen to it with all the instruments. What I'm going to do is I'll do drums, bass, and pad. Then I'll do plucks. Actually, instead, I'll do bass and drums. Then I'll bring in the melody. No, I'll bring in the plucks. Then I'll bring in the melody. And then I'll bring in the pads so we can get a better idea how this is going to sound. And so let's go ahead and solo this out. And okay. Okay, that doesn't sound too bad if that's what you're going for. Now the next part, if you want to spruce things up a little bit more, is when you look at our 4 bars, you start at the first bar, second bar, third bar, fourth bar, and then it loops back to the first. So sometimes it makes sense to vary the 4th bar a little bit to add a little bit of interest. So I will vary maybe this whole bar, or I will go individually for each last quarter note and vary that, because this is setting you up for the next sort of transition for the next bar, and then this whole one will set you up to start back at the beginning, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to, let's just try doing something like this. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and loop this, and then I'm going to play around with either the last 2 quarter notes or the last quarter note that's going to transition into either the next bar or back to the beginning. now that adds a little bit of interest. So when it loops back around, you're sort of setting it back up. Having that as like the ending, and then it loops back around to the beginning. Now, the other thing you can do is you don't necessarily have to stick to the root note. We can change some of these other notes around too. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play, and then I'm going to play around a little bit with each of these three to see if I can come up with a more interesting variation. Let's just start it back at the beginning. Okay, so that sounds pretty decent. I'm going to play around with probably these 4 notes again because it's transitioning into the next bar. So let's go ahead and I'm just gonna, let's just do this just to start off to add just a little bit. Since we're going up, let's just do this. Oops, delete that. And we're gonna sort of walk our way up to this note. This we will walk our way down to this note. And then this, I think we'll leave just the same. Let's listen to see how this sounds. That's it. And then you can just keep going, just keep moving notes around until you come up with something that you like. What I would recommend to do is, if you find a pattern that you kind of like, that you duplicate it, set it aside, do a little more work on it to make it more intricate. If you get to the point where you kind of like what you have, duplicate that, set that aside. So then this way you'll have a number of variations of bass lines that you can choose from. Now for the next one that I'm going to show you, I'm going to go ahead and pause the camera, and because I'm going to use a MIDI note generator to generate our bass line. So I'm going to pause the camera right now. Okay, for the second bass line that we're going to come up with, I'm going to use a melody generator, which using a melody generator to come up with bass lines is actually a great way to do it, because what it's doing is it's coming up with a more sort of interesting variation of sounds as opposed to just a very simple bass line. The one that I just got done showing you is very simple. If that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for something that's a little more busy, as opposed to taking something simple and working it to make it very busy by changing the duration of the notes and moving the notes around and taking some notes out and adding notes in, this can do all that for you. And then if this ends up to be too busy, then you can take some of the notes out and then change the duration so it's not as busy. So you're sort of, you essentially have two starting points that you could work with. Either you start very simple or you start complex and then sort of work your way to the center. Now there's one thing that I just want to quickly show you. There's a free version and there's a paid version. The free version, you can just come to this website and just start using it. You don't even have to register. You don't have to give your email address away, which is sort of refreshing, because you sign up for something and they tell you it's free, and then it's super limited, and then they start blowing up your email trying to get you to purchase whatever service that they're trying to provide. This, you come to it and you can use it. I just want to show you it very quickly. If you go up to the menu, and even though this says Go Pro, we're not going to go Pro, but this is the page that you can go to find out what's involved in your free version, and this is your plus version. The plus version, it not only has MIDI files, but it also has WAV files where there's the actual sound is included with it. And there's a bunch of other features. I'm not interested in any of this stuff right now. All I'm looking for is to use this as a melody generator, period. So it's only $7 a month. If this ever turned into a paid service, I probably would pay the $7 a month and then kick out a bunch of melodies for that month and then cancel it and then build a bunch of songs off the melodies like that. It's sort of a cost-saving sort of way of doing things if you're really strapped for cash. But I mean, $7 a month is not really that much money. So let's go ahead and go out. I'm going to go ahead and explain. Now this, sort of the order that this is in doesn't really make a lot of sense, but there's really not a lot of things to worry about on here. Right here, you've got your generate button, which it says generate new melody. So every time you want to generate a new melody, obviously you hit the button. Right here is your melody serial number, and my assumption is because it signs this a serial number, that this is a one-of-a-kind, very unique. This is your main melody. Your notes right here, these are the notes that are being played within your melody. So only these notes will be played over and over in different orders with different durations to make up your melody. Your length right here. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and open this up with this piece of paper, because we can change these parameters. If you click on the pencil and going back, here's your melody serial number. Here are the notes that the system has picked. This right here, this is a little confusing. In fact, the last video that I used this on, I actually got it wrong. This length, this is not how many bars. This is actually eighth notes. So if you go with 8 as eighth notes, I think it might even be 16th notes. But anyways, if you choose an 8, when you download your MIDI, it'll download 1 bar. However, only half of that bar will have a melody, and then the other half will be empty. This is very strange, but that's the way that this thing works. If you go with 16, then when you download your MIDI file, again, it'll be 1 bar, but the melody will take up that whole bar. If you go with 32, then when you download your MIDI, you'll have 2 bars, and the melody will take up the full 2 bars. And then if you go with 64, which anytime that I do a melody itself, not necessarily a bass line, but a melody, I will go with 64, because that will give me 4 bars and the melody will take up those whole 4 bars, and it will be only the notes that are showing up here. If there's a particular root note that you want to start with, all these are the notes on your keyboard. So if you're going with, let's say, a bass line, then you'd probably want to use maybe a lower register. So I'm going to go with A2. Here is your scale. This thing has a ton of scales in here. I wish that they would have had the 2 most popular scales, the major scale and the minor scale, in my opinion, should be right up on top, because that's mostly what people are going to use. However, having all these different scales in here, you can really come up with some very interesting sounding music by using a different scale that most people don't use. I, however, am set on going with either C major or A minor, because it's all the white keys on the keyboard, as I say, like in every single video that I do. I believe on here it's minor pentatonic would be the minor scale, the most popular minor scale. And as you can see up here, the notes are an A and an E. Now again, why I like to use C major, A minors, it's all the white keys on the keyboard. When I'm composing, I don't want to think about music theory. I can figure things out relatively quickly. It's not that big of a deal, but why put obstacles in your way? I want to create, I want to hear something, and I want to change it. So I'm going with the full length. This will give me the 4 bars. The root note is going to be A, and then the key is going to be minor pentatonic. Here are your sounds for auditioning. For the free plan, these sounds are not going to download. But for the paid version, you can get these sounds. These sounds are really all like really weak sounding. In my opinion, they really, if they want people to spend money for the plus plan, they're really going to have to come up with some better sounds. But there's a bunch of different sounds in here that are good enough for auditioning what the melody is going to be. In this case, it's going to be our bass line. I stick with the soft plucks because it's a short duration of a sound, and it gives me a better idea of what the finished melody is going to be like, or in this case, bass line. If you go farther down here, here's your metronome. I suggest that you always have your metronome on while you're auditioning, because you can listen to a melody and say, yeah, that sounds good, or a bass line, but with the metronome playing in the background, you kind of get the groove of the melody, you kind of get the groove of the bass line. It just, to me, I like to leave the metronome on. When you download the MIDI file, the metronome will not be on there. It will be just the melody itself. This is strictly just for auditioning purposes. And then you have your beats per minute over here. The plus and the minus goes up 10, and then the little arrows is your fine tuning. It's a little weird to me, but okay, not that big of a deal. So we have notes E and A. Typically with melodies and even with bass lines, I like to have as many notes as possible. So just to have 2 notes that are playing over and over again, even though, again, the durations are going to be different and the spacing between the notes are going to be random, it's still just the 2 notes over and over again. So the number of notes that I typically always look for are either 4 or 5. 5 is the max, and I think 2 is the minimum. So I'm going to keep hitting generate here until I get at least 4 or 5 notes. Okay, I got 3 there, 2, 3. Now I got 5. These are the 5 notes that are going to be played, and we'll be listening to 4 bars of this melody. And all you have to do is down here, hit play. See, now that kind of sounds like a bass line, right? You could use it as a melody, but to me that kind of sounds like a bass line. So I'm going to download this. You just hit the MIDI file down here. It says download MIDI file. And then what this does, this is something new. This wasn't here before. I just noticed it yesterday that they're trying to get you to sign up for the Plus plan, so they're making you wait an extra 10 seconds. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but okay. Now we have our file to download. The file itself has some information on it. This is obviously the name of the website, and this is the melody. S, this is the serial number that we spoke about. T That's your beats per minute. Beats per minute, 128. C1, I'm not sure what that means. 64, that was the section when we were talking about how many bars that are going to actually be exported. And we picked 64, which is going to give us the full 4 bars, a full 4 bars of a melody. In this case, it's a bass line. The 45, I'm not quite sure what that means, but this is major, pentatonic, and the 20 is basically just a space. So I'm going to go ahead and, well, what I like to do, anytime that I use this program, I don't just pick one melody and then download it and work with it. What I like to do is I pick a handful of melodies, and then I like to audition all of them in my DAW, whether it's a melody or it's a bass line, to audition to see which one I think sounds the best, because I'll have a VST plugged into it. So I'll be able to actually hear how it sounds with the song. I'll have the actual sound, most likely the sound that I'm going to use, or a sound that's going to be similar to that. And then I can pick the best ones. The melody end of it, as I think that I had mentioned before, is I had downloaded a bunch of melodies, listened to all of them, and I found one that I really liked the melody, and I found another one that, just because there are a lot of short duration notes in there, that I decided to use that for my pluck. So I actually had sort of a counter melody going on. But I'm going to go ahead and download this. Every time you download it, it throws you to this page. Again, you have to wait like 10 seconds because it's free. And then after you get it downloaded, you just hit that, and then we're back. And it still has everything. We still want that. We're still going to audition with the soft plucks. We're going to hit generate again, and then these notes are going to change again. So we've got 2 notes, 4 notes. Let's go ahead and listen to that. Now, if you wanted like a very crazy sounding bass line, something like that would probably work. That's actually just a little too crazy, so I'm going to hit generate again. We've got 3. We've got 3. And we've got 4. Now, sometimes just going with some of these same notes, I could probably even listen to one of those tonight, and we'll see how that sounds, and maybe we'll even try that out, because it's still, you're still getting a bass line or a melody throughout the 4 bars, and everything is sort of mixed up. I'm trying to get as many variations with the notes, which is why I always go with the 4 and the 5. But let's listen to this anyways. See, again, it's a little too busy, and there's like a big space, and I would rather put the spaces in myself. I'd rather have a full 4 bars of a melody, and if I want a little bit of space or a little bit of breathing room, I just assume put that in myself. So I'm going to generate this again. We got another 4. Let's listen to that. That's all right. To me, that still sounds a little more like a melody, but that's something that I could easily download and probably play around with it a little bit more to make it sound a little bit more like a bass line as opposed to a melody. So let's generate again. Okay, this time we'll have 3, but let's listen to it anyways. It might be good enough. Yeah, again, you could probably use it. I'd like to just stick to my rule of 4 and 5s just to get enough. There's 3, there's 3, there's 2, there's 4 again. Okay, that sounds pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and download that again. I'm going to number these just because I should have put a 1 on this one right here, which I suppose I could do that now. Okay, I'm going to put a 2 on here. And then this way I can sort of differentiate the first melody, the second melody, or in this case, bass lines. I'd like to get at least 3, maybe 4, but I'm pretty confident that that one of these will work. out pretty well. So we'll exit out of this. We're back to where we are again at the beginning. Generate. We got another 4. Let's play it. Now that one's not busy enough. This would make a decent melody, but for our bass line purposes, I think I'm going to skip that. We'll do another one. See, now that sounds more like an arpeggiator, which we really don't want that for bass. So let's just go ahead and hit generate. We got 3, 3, 3, 3. Here's 4. Okay, that sounds good. So we wait for this to download again, and then here we go. I'm going to throw a 3 on this one. We've got 3 to choose from, so I think this should be good. Okay, I'm going to pause the camera one more time, and then I'll get everything set up in my DAW. Okay, now I got our 3 melodies. Here's the first one, here's the second one, here's the third one, or our bass lines. And I already have this looped. So let's go ahead and listen to the first melody with just the drums and the melody with our bass. Okay. Not thrilling me so far, but let's try our second one now. Fix that. Okay, I'm going to change. Here's another good thing that I want to draw your attention to is anytime I export a MIDI file from Dope Loop AI, the velocity always comes back at 50%, which is low. The velocity not only affects the volume, but it also affects the tone, where you have a bit of a brighter sound. So I always have to make sure that I bring that up. The other thing is I think we started in a register that was too low. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to transpose this up 1 step. Or I should say 1 octave. And now let's do it. Okay, interesting. Let's, with 3 and with the first one that we already played, I'm going to go ahead and transpose both of those right now, because maybe that's what might have been one of the reasons why I wasn't really that thrilled with the way that it sounded. And also, as I had mentioned before, the velocity on these are typically at 50%, which I like to go up to at least 80. All right. There we go. 0. All right. So next, let's go ahead and listen to the third one. Let's see how that sounds. now the duration of these notes cut off pretty quick. And by themselves, they may not sound the best, but we're going to rework these a little bit. I just want to find one that I kind of like. Okay, the first one, I don't think that I'm going to use. I'm just not feeling it. This one, I think, number 3, has some longer duration ones. So let's go ahead and I'm going to duplicate it. It's always a good idea to duplicate. You find something that you kind of like, and then you duplicate it, and then you rework it a little bit more, and then you duplicate it, so you can always go back if you really mess up someplace, as opposed to hitting your undo a half a dozen times. Now this, it feels like the duration is a little bit off. Let me see here. Now the one thing that I am looking for is on every kick there needs to be a note to reinforce the kick drum. So if you look on here, here's a kick, there's a kick, there's a kick, there's a kick, 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 kick. So it looks like that it's already there. Let's just go ahead and play it for a second. I'm just trying to see here. This looks... Okay, this looks pretty identical. Maybe that's the reason why maybe this thing sounds kind of like a bass line, because this bar, this bar, and this bar, and this bar, it all looks pretty much exactly the same. So let's just go ahead and let's do it with the music and make our decision if we want to play around with it a little bit to see what we can come up with or not. So I'm going to go ahead and play with just the drums and the bass. I'll bring in the melody, the plucks, and then I'll bring in the pad. Okay, that does not sound great. So here's what we're going to do. I am going to mirror the bass off of our chords, kind of like I did at the beginning of the video. So this, we go from a C to an E to a D to an E. C, E, D, E. So we're going to add a little variation to this, because that was the whole point of having 4 bars exported, as opposed to having just 1 bar and then copying it all over again. So this is, we said the first one was a C. So I'm going to bring the first note down to a C. Or is that C? No, that's not a C. I would have to go up. So, do I want to do that or not? Let's go back to this for 1 second. C, E, D, E. Yeah, the reason why I'm a little, because that's A. Okay. Let's go with, instead of C, while we are on A, let's just try doing this. I have a different idea. Instead of mirroring it, we go up, down, and then up again. So I think what we'll do is, because we went C, D, right? C, E, D, E. So we'll go up 2 steps. We already went up 1. We'll go up 2. Whoops. We'll go up 2. Oh. And then this one will come back down. Now these are half steps, so this might not sound that great, but let's go ahead and we'll find out whether or not we like this or not. Okay, so this I add a little more variation to our bass line because that's, again, I didn't want to just do 1 bar and have it repeat over and over again. The whole point of having 4 bars is I wanted something unique throughout this bass line. Okay, I am just going to try, because this doesn't sound that great either. So I'm going to bump it up 1 more. Because anytime when you're dealing notes that are in the key that you're working in, but they're only a half step as opposed to a whole step, sometimes it sounds interesting, other times it doesn't sound very good. So that's why I'm going to move each one of these to vary them. So let's try it now. Nah, see, that doesn't sound very good at all. Let's try, I'm going to try one of these other ones. Let's see. I'm just going to delete this altogether because I'm not happy with it. This was our original melody. This one was the one that I duplicated, and then I started doing a little more work to it. Let's try this one, and let's see if this gives me the variation that I'm looking for. See, all of these, like this bar is different from this bar, is different from this bar, is different from this bar. This is basically what I was trying to accomplish. So let's try this with our music. Okay, to me that sounds a lot better, even though I know the duration of the actual sound that I'm using is very abrupt. And I can either accomplish that by adding a little bit of a release to it. Okay, I'm going to try something different. What I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the duration of the notes themselves. I have this set to, yeah, let's just leave it like that. And this way I can do a little more finer tuning. Okay, now that's just a hair. That's a hair to every single one of these notes to make the duration or the sustain a little bit longer. This one sounded really kind of sloppy here. Unless this ending might have been sloppy. That might have been it. Nope, that should have been okay. Let's just play it again. I've already got some ideas for this, so. Oops. I don't know how I got outside my loop. Okay. So one of the things, and I think that I already mentioned it, but if I didn't, I'm going to mention it right now. I always want to note where the kick hits. So here's a note, here's a note, here's a note. It's each kick is hitting on the quarter note. So here's one, here's one, here's one. If you look at the fourth one, there is no kick, or there is no note to come in with a kick. So I'm going to just move that there. Again, kick, kick. There's no note for the kick here, so let's just move it up. Because I want to reinforce that first beat where the kick is at. So kick, there's a kick there. Kick is right here, there, there, there. Right here, there's no kick. So let's just go ahead and take this note and move it up. No kick here, or no note for the kick that's here, so we'll move that up. Kick and kick. So this actually should sound, just by making these few notes different, this should sound a bit better. And we got outside of our loop again. I'm not sure how that sounds. I'm thinking, because this first note still sounds kind of sloppy. I'm thinking, no, I thought maybe there were two notes there. But, so I just deleted that note because I think that there's something wrong with it. Let's just duplicate this note and then let's see how this one sounds. Okay, so to emphasize the kick even that much more, I'm going to increase the duration everywhere where there's a kick. Okay, so this one looks good. Let's see, there'd be a kick there. So let's just increase the duration to make sure that we have a full, what's that, eighth note, I think. And wherever there's a kick, we want a full eighth note. In there. And here. I'm going to get rid of this. And then we'll go here. And here. Some of these I'm just tidying up a little bit because I think that they might be slightly too long. Not that it's really going to make a difference, but I really want to emphasize each one. Let's get rid of this too because these are too close together. I really want to emphasize when the kick hits, they have a solid note underneath it. I got to get rid of this note because it feels like it's sliding into that note and I don't want that to happen. So let's see what it sounds like now. Sounds good. I mean, you could stop right there if you wanted to. I think I may just go with that. So, if I helped you out today, please subscribe, please like, and we'll see you next time.